Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call the special council meeting of March 2nd, 2026 to order. Before we begin with our agenda, I have a couple of things I'd like to speak to. First of all, the reason that I am deputy mayor is because we do an organizational meeting in the fall, and every councillor is appointed for 2 months during the year. You can actually go onto the website and look at each of our bios, and it will list when each councillor is responsible to be deputy mayor. So when we are deputy mayor, if the mayor for any reason cannot be fulfill any of their duties, we will be at the request of the mayor asked to step in. The reason I'm here today is the mayor is still on vacation, and so I will be chairing this meeting, and he will return later this week and resume his duties. That being said, why and how do we call a special meeting? So if there's something that comes up outside of the time frame of a regular council meeting, we would then call a special meeting. The mayor at any time can call a special council meeting. If he chooses not to, for whatever reason, then by a majority of council, they can call a special meeting, which is what happened today. For me, agreeing to a special meeting isn't necessarily about me agreeing to the content of what's going to happen in that meeting. What it's about is giving the respect to my fellow council that I'm going to be there to listen to you, and I'm going to be there for open debate and discussion in a public forum, which is this chamber. So that being said, we will carry on. I'd like to welcome, I see some citizens and residents in chamber. Welcome, thank you for attending. And so I'd like an adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Councillor Billingsley, so moved. And then the reason for this meeting is a concern brought forward by Councillor Aberley, so I will give her the chair at this point. Council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hoyle, through the chair. Before I begin, I want to speak directly to our community.
Point of order.
Yes.
We need to approve the agenda.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor to accept the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Carry on.
I will continue speaking to our community. Disagreement is a part of democracy. Debate is healthy. Accountability is essential. But threats, intimidation, or targeting someone's personal life or family is not. We can disagree with decisions. We can question process. We can normalize, but we cannot normalize behavior that creates fear for someone carrying out duties they were appointed to perform. The strength of a community is measured by whether we can disagree while still upholding respect and safety. That responsibility begins with us, the people elected to lead, and that is why I asked for this meeting. Sue. Over the course of your city manager's tenure, there have been repeated instances of hostile or threatening communications. It began several years ago with the death threat, and most recently there have been suggestions of making life difficult not only for you, but also your partner. This is unacceptable. You were appointed by council to carry out the responsibilities of the role. You deserve professionalism, clarity, and the support of the governing body you serve. Council. While none of us controls what members of the public choose to say, we cannot ignore the pattern. These incidents have occurred during periods of heightened public discussion. That pattern is not coincidental, and it matters. This is not about who authored any one comment. The sequence is clear. Public criticism within council is followed by escalation from the public. Regardless of intent, that dynamic creates an environment where administration becomes a target. Intent and impact are not the same. When threats occur, especially more than once, the issue moves beyond political disagreement. It becomes an employer responsibility issue. At that point, we are not debating perspective, we are managing risk. Under the MGA, council governs collectively, and the city manager administers the organization under council's direction. Those role boundaries are governance safeguards. When they appear blurred in public discourse, confusion and instability follow. Regardless of how any individual views past commentary, the outcome is clear. Our city manager has experienced repeated threats while carrying out duties directed by council. That requires a governance-level response. For that reason, I am recommending we engage an independent third party to provide advice. Seeking professional guidance is not an admission of fault, it is prudent governance. It protects our city, it protects council collectively, it protects each of us individually, it protects the organization, and it protects the community we serve. Last night we received an email from a lady who's lived here for 20 years, and I've been given permission to share a portion of it. And I quote, "On the same week, we sent our kids off to school wearing pink shirts and reminding them to be kind. In the checkout line, I overheard a female counselor labeled a lying, I won't use the word, and read that our city manager doesn't deserve the air she breathes. I find myself wondering if I even want to live here anymore. Because, heaven forbid, my daughter wants to grow up and be a city councilor or manager. I wouldn't want her to do it here." And that is what this is about. We cannot control every voice in the community, but we can control whether our leadership sets clear boundaries, fulfills our responsibilities, and demonstrates the tone and behavior we expect in these chambers and beyond. Public service must not require anyone, regardless of their role, to endure repeated threats for carrying out their duties. The culture we normalize today shapes what participation looks like tomorrow. For these reasons, I move that Council direct administration to obtain independent, third-party, professional advice respecting governance best practices and role clarity between Council and the City Manager, public communication protocols and reputation risk management, employer obligations related to workplace safety, including psychological safety, and recommended measures to mitigate organizational and reputational risk arising from public commentary directed towards administration. I look forward to Council's discussion and to us addressing this matter with the clarity, unity, and resolve that our roles require. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aberley. We have a motion on the floor. Discussion. Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. I was quite upset when I was given the information of the threats that were made to our city manager, and it's not acceptable, and I agree to that. I guess what you have said was eloquently put, and can't disagree with any of it. But I'm wondering in the motion if we need to also talk about staff as well, and not just the city manager. We had an incident last week with one of the employees at Manluck Center who was physically assaulted, and that's just not acceptable behavior either. And maybe this is the time to add something in there to be able to mitigate the risk for our employees. I also would like to take a look at timing of this, and also the amount of money that we would spend on this and where that money would come from.
Further discussion before, did you want to amend your motion before we move on?
I welcome any amendments that are put forth to discuss those as necessary. My intent was to try to do this as quickly as possible, which is why I requested of council that we do this now and not wait 2 weeks. I think it's important. I think it's important to do it as soon as possible. And I have thought about the cost, I've thought about it a lot, and I made another statement that I just want to share. I do think cost matters, and I do think it should matter. But I also think that safety, clarity, and organizational health matters. And that this is a reasonable investment. I'm not looking into millions of dollars. I'm looking into some help that is external. I'd be willing to give up the rest of my education budget towards that, so we can all learn together how to do our job better.
I see Councillor Nielsen. Did you want to speak, Councillor, before we make an amendment or after?
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess I have, first off, to Councillor Aberley, thank you for your comments, and I echo Councillor Billingsley's comments about how well they were delivered. The piece that's disturbing to me is that we've been spending an inordinate amount of time wrestling with our current circumstance, and at the risk of not addressing other community issues, and that's worrisome to me as well. But the one question, I guess, and maybe it's directed at Councillor Aberley, I'm not sure. I'll direct it to Councillor Aberley. And that is, in your mind, does your motion include, direction for council and for administration relative to engaging with the RCMP, engaging with legal, to actually start talking about responding to some of the allegations, salacious allegations, threatening allegations, because I think it's important that if this poison doesn't stop coming from a segment of our community, that we need to set the standard, and we can only do that through RCMP intervention and or legal intervention. And so to me, the question, I guess, is, Karen, is would that be part of your motion in terms of intention?
Thank you, Councillor Nielsen, through the chair. I would say absolutely. I don't perceive myself to be the expert in what the next step is, which is why I would like to have some legal help. I do know that current comments, or the comments from Friday, have been forwarded to the RCMP, and that this has happened numerous times over the last 4 years that I've been on council. So I think in many ways we can continue doing what we can in those respects. A lot of what I'm looking towards also, though, is the ability to help us as a group of 7 understand what our role is in this. And there are limits to what we can do legally, especially if it is on social media. Is it most prudent? We've made some discussions last term over whether we think there should be a city response, whether there should not be a city response. We've gone back and forth with this so many times. I'm not sure we're representing well what the majority of this community thinks towards such comments, and that we need help. We are 4 months into this term. We are dealing with extraordinary circumstances that many communities are not facing, and I don't know if the word is fair, but I don't think the 7 of us alone can make this decision. I'm just looking for advice to help us make the decision. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chairman?
Yes, May.
I support the intention. I of the motion that's been presented. And maybe it's a question of asking if this motion does pass, is asking the consultants in this regard, what are our steps with regard to, I'm going to use the word pushing back against threatening and salacious, slanderous comments, because I think as the letter you've addressed, and I also read, that one of the questions that was asked in that letter is, why are you, as city council, allowing these comments to continue unchallenged? And I believe it's time to challenge them. And I would hope that we could have those conversations with our consultant if this motion passes. Thank you.
Councillor Billingsley?
Through the chair to administration, how quickly would we be able to get professional advice or a independent contractor or whatever term you want to use to help us guide us through this?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, I think the best route forward is going to be for me to create a couple of different options for council to consider. We already have lawyers on retainer. We already have communication professionals on retainer that could help with a lot of this stuff. We have our people and culture department who can answer some of the legislated pieces as well. But I think I could have something publicly available to come back to council for the March 24th meeting that would have options and costs available.
Thank you.
Further discussion? We have a motion on the floor. Councillor White?
Through the chair to administration, please help me understand what our, I'll say, boundaries are, guidelines are for what funding we as a council can choose to use for seeking this advice. Like, are we looking at $400 or $4 million?
Through the chair to Councillor White, it depends on the options that are chosen. There are a couple of different aspects to this that I think could be covered by the same entities. So we could capitalize on that. We do have contingency funding that could be utilized for this, and this could be anywhere from like $1,500 up to $25,000. There's a wide spectrum of people that could be pulled in to help, and it depends on which ones you choose. There's more than one group that does this type of advising, so it could be lawyers, it could be someone like George Cuff, different communications firms, that sort of stuff. So we'll see how much of it we could handle in-house to reduce the costs, and then potentially just get legal opinions on that, which are much cheaper, versus having a lawyer come in and have a governance discussion with council, which could cost a lot more.
Continue.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Aberley, is the intention of your motion a single source third party or multiple third parties to address the items?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Councillor White, and it's a great question, and I think my answer is going to be very similar to how I answered Councillor Nielsen's, in that if I knew, I would have recommended, right, if this was my area of expertise, I would have recommended something specific, so I cannot answer that to you. I think in my head, I was thinking that there could be multiple, and I'm not saying yes to George Cuff just because it was brought up. I know when he came in a few years ago, when I was new, he helped center me quite a bit. So maybe I didn't agree with everything he said, but that's where I got just some advice from someone else that was really raw with us and told me lots of things I shouldn't do that I still do. But so I don't know. I think, yes, it's multiple. I think what we can do in-house is great, but I think we're going to need some outside help. I think a lot of us are too close to it. I think even if we went to our people and culture department, they still work for our CAO. They are still living, working in this community. And I need an outsider's perspective, at least one, to maybe I'm overreacting, and then have that person talk to it with me, or talk us through that as a group.
Continue.
Through the chair to Councillor Aberly, another point of clarification in your motion, which I support your sentiment. My questions aren't intended as antagonistic. If we pass this, how will we know when we've got it? Like, I'm just being very analytical and thinking, okay, we'll put this on the council action task summary because we've asked something to be done. How will we know when we've got advice? Because really the motion is to obtain advice on 1, 2, 3, 4. What does completion look like to you? So that I know what your intention is.
100%, and it is a beautiful question. Sorry, through the chair. It is an excellent question, and I am here as the person with no answers. How have we succeeded? I think that we look at the recommendations coming forward. We decide as a group where we feel the most comfortable with getting the help that we need, because I don't think this is just me. I don't think the concern is just me. That's what I came up with when my brain was thinking around it. I think success in general looks like a community that feels that we are representing safety for everybody in this city, and the people that live, work, do business here in its many forms. Do I think that it's going to be fixed? If we get information back on March 24th, we have somebody talk to us in early April, it's done? Absolutely not. I think that we're going to have to continue to work on this throughout this term, and maybe the advice is small and it's what we do with it, because again, I think it's our responsibility to model what we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so my question was, so then would it be more pertinent for that motion for council to come back with the information rather than obtain the professional advice? Does that make sense?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I welcome a discussion and vote on that, whether it's to obtain the information. I did ask on the weekend for some wordsmithing, so thank you.
No worries. Further discussion? Yes, Councillor Elder.
So being new to this, do we start with municipal affairs? Is that where we start for direction?
Is that a
Just
question? Administration, please.
Yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Elder, they are one source that we could use to speak to governance, but they're not usually the ones that do the training. There are legal firms, there are consultants out there that do council orientations that speak to proper governance, etc. So we would bring back a plethora of options, but it wouldn't necessarily be through the government.
So I'm just wondering if we want to get this through quickly, we're talking the 24th, that's almost another month that goes by. Is there other options that you've worked with in the past, or are aware of that could help sooner than that?
There are. We could bring something back on the 10th, but we wouldn't have time to do up a public agenda. Like, it would come after the fact. So that's why we were thinking about the 24th. But if council was okay with it, we could walk something on March 10th and then publish the document after the fact so that the public could see it.
Just think sooner than later is probably best.
Councillor Billingsley?
Thank you. I think it's really important in all of this, and part of the discussion is that we don't want to, at least myself personally, don't want to stifle any debate or disagreement amongst ourselves on issues that we deal with. But what we're really talking about here is the public threats that have been made towards staff and specifically our CAO that is just not acceptable behavior. And that has to be made very clear, that we still can have disagreements, but that's disagreements on your position, not about anyone specifically of who they are.
Thank you. Councillor Aberley?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through the chair, and I agree completely, wholeheartedly. I actually love a good debate and a good, fair debate. And I think that, and honestly, you and I, Dean, know this well. We can disagree strongly because you and I disagree strongly with each other. But at the end of the day, we still have respect for each other. And I still think we have a responsibility as the 7 of us to learn better how to model that behavior and ensure that it's happening, like I said, here in these chambers, so that can trickle out to the community and see how we can disagree on something but still serve professionally. Thank you.
Councillor Nielsen?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Again, I guess a question through to Councillor Aberley. I'm looking at the first item of your agenda, Karen, where you talk about governance, best practices, and rule clarity between council and the city manager. And I guess I'm wondering what you would hope to accomplish with that, given that as a new council, we all had to have training on that very topic of governance, best practices, and the role descriptions that we have in relation to working with our city manager. So how would you see any intervention being different than what we've already supposedly learned from earlier in service?
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Nielsen, how long have you been on council? And I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I think every time we hear it again, we learn something new. I think we have a great opportunity right here because we are a really good mix of people who have been here, who have been on council for a decade, if not more. People who have been on council for 4 months. And all of us have ways to better understand how we do our roles. I don't think that any training would be enough. And I have already said it, I think that the seven of us are in some really unique positions here that go beyond the surface level of what our roles are, what our responsibilities are, and how we continue to do this and do our jobs most effectively for this community. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes, please.
Thanks. And I don't disagree with that response at all. Where I sit currently in relation to this is that I don't want to get this issue, this chaos, this issue that we're currently dealing with, tied up in what I'm going to call administrivia. And I think Councillor Billingsley sort of said, one of the things that I hear that most everybody around the table is concerned about is the public chatter, the threats, the comments, and all the rest of it that aren't healthy for anybody in any position, and certainly not healthy for our community. And I don't want to get lost in, I'm going to call it administrative, it's administrative in terms of how are we going to interact with one another on council, and hope that we get to the issue of public commentary. Your early introduction talked about it's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's okay to be able to debate and even indicate that I think you're wrong. But it's the poison that we're currently seeing that I suspect brought this meeting together. And as I said, I don't want to, for me personally, I want to get to the communication piece. How are we going to communicate with our public? How are we going to push back against horrific statements that are threatening and so forth? And I don't want to get, personally, I don't want to get tied up in number one. I'm not saying there's no value in number one, but I really sense, and I could be wrong here, I really sense that why we're here is because of the social media stuff that's out there right now. And I don't disagree that all four of these elements are important to the conversation. But I'd rather get to the root cause, and I'm not sure that number one for me is a root cause, but thank you.
Councillor Apperly?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hoyle. And through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, in many ways, I agree and disagree. And I don't believe that any one of them is more important than the other, so I agree that I don't want to get bogged down in number one.
Then you and I'd be on the same page, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I question whether the 4 points that you have brought forward in your motion, Councillor Apperly, are addressing what Councillor Nielsen is saying. Do you see within one of these where that would be addressed? Because I echo his thing, well, I feel strongly everyone has a right to be heard and share their thoughts and opinions. Sharing these thoughts and opinions, no matter how, whether it's written or spoken, still need to be done in a respectful manner. And that's not what we're seeing in the community, whether you're hearing it in the grocery store, and I appreciate that citizen writing, I got the same letter. It was hard to hear, but I was glad that they share those things with us. They're deplorable, and they're disturbing. I had a phone call from my daughter about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and she said, "Mom, what is going on?" And I said, "Well, you know, it's just social." She said, "Mom, no, this goes well beyond just social media." Because I'm very much, yeah, it's just social media. We just ignore them. And I think it's gone beyond the ignoring them, because there was another comment that was made that we all should leave town for our own safety. And she said, "Mom, I'm getting worried." And I said, "Oh, don't be worried. You know, it's just people." She goes, "Yeah, but we know what happens when it's sometimes just people putting stuff on social media, that it can escalate quickly and to levels that we've seen in other communities and in other places." And so when my daughter, who is very level-headed and very like me, we just let it, is concerned, then I kind of gave my head a little and said, maybe we need to deal with this on another level, because we do hear it is just social media. But when it can cause chaos, like it has in our community, and I think a lot of it is intentional, that's my own opinion, and to drive a wedge between us and our citizens, I do think we need to address it. I am just, like Councillor Apperly, not exactly sure how we go about doing that. And moving everyone's thoughts forward. Councillor Apperly?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hoyle. And through the chair, I just want to shift my thoughts, at least, and hope I can shift you guys with me, that it's not about what I read on Friday. I think what I read on Friday triggered me to 2 years ago, triggered me to 4 years ago, triggered me to times that while I have sat in this chair, there's been a continuous pattern of things get heated in this room. And I'm not saying, because I think that, I'm not saying we disrespect each other. And I think this is why number one was so important to me, and why it became first, or was my first line, was that, am I behaving properly in this room? Am I modeling that your opinion is okay? Am I so quick to judge what somebody says without understanding what they say, understanding where that comment came from? And then do I go out, and I don't do it on social media, do I leave this room thinking, okay, we're all good here, we're one team, we're great? What are other things I say to my friends? What are other things I say to my family? When am I speaking as us and speaking for the health of our organization? Because I'm human, we're all human, and that's where number one comes, that's where number one came from, is how do I do this job better? How do we all help each other, help administration, so that whether the intent is there or not, they're not taking the abuse that we cause, because we can civilly debate and discuss how do we put that forward to the community on how to do that. Thank you.
Councillor Billingsley?
Thank you. Through the chair, I think it's important to leave number one in there. Whether it's weighted the same as 2, 3, and 4, that I'm not too concerned about that. We were all elected as leaders, and we have to be those leaders. And how that then is shown within the community, I think is really important, that we step up and we are the leaders in the community. That's what we were elected to be.
Further discussion? Councillor Aberley, Councillor White?
Through the chair to council. I appreciate this motion and the intention, and I'm very supportive. I have to say I'm still quite uncomfortable with not having a budget and with not having some definition of what success looks like, of having, so we're asking for some recommendations. Will they be public, or are they just for us in closed session? I really wish I want more. I do intend to support this, because I'll be the first to say I'm new here and sure don't know everything, so I would welcome some help. It's been unclear to me personally, even though I've gone looking and asking for how do we navigate the waters that we're currently in, so I welcome some help. I'm not okay with getting help from 100 sources at high dollars, and I wish that was clearer in here, but I do intend to support this.
Councillor Aberley?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hoyle. I would like to discuss an amendment to my own motion.
Thank you. Hello.
I move that council, sorry Denise, if you could help me, put it up so I can see. I move that council directs administration to bring back options for.
Is this to amend your motion, Councillor Aberley?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then if I could just, I think I can put it in the first sentence, but then I would just want to do the I need to think for 1 second, excuse, pardon. Council directs administration to bring back options for independent. So after advice, can you just hit enter? Third-party professional advice with, after advice, I apologize. I wanted respecting on its own line. Sorry, Denise. I don't know why you don't know where my head's at. No, respecting on its own line, and then the with will come after advice.
Denise, I think she'd like
Can I-
the advice, so advice with, and then she's going to add to it, and she's going to leave respecting on its
Can we
own.
please take a
break.
2-minute
Yes,
pause?
we will.
We don't
Thank
even
you.
need to turn the camera off.
We'll just wait a minute for that amended motion, or the amendments to that motion to come up. Councillor Aberley, after reading that, then I will get your okay to vote on the amendment.
So that council directs administration to bring back options for independent third-party professional advice, respecting, we'll take out that with that I was so stuck on, governance best practices and role clarity between council and the city manager, public communication protocols and reputation risk management, employer obligations related to workplace safety, including psychological safety, and recommended measures to mitigate organizational and reputational risk arising from public commentary directed towards administration, including estimates for costing and timelines, and to be brought back to the March 10, 2026 council meeting.
Can I have a vote on the amendment, please? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Aye.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak to the amended motion?
Yes, if I may.
Yes,
Oh,
you
sorry.
may. Carry on, Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you. And again, I'm going to go back to original question I posed to Councillor Aberly, because for me, this is a really important element to get to. And I want some assurances there's an understanding, even if it's not stated, that we will be talking about slanderous and or threatening commentary from the public.
Okay. Councillor Billingsley, did you have? Okay, did you want to speak now or wait?
Nope.
Okay, Councillor Aberly?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hoyle, and through the chair. Councillor Nielsen, your comments I read in my fourth point. So I would welcome an amendment to that line to include your words more directly.
And I'm sorry, Karen, which item? You said in item number?
In point number 4 in my motion, the recommended measures to mitigate organizational and reputational risk arising from public commentary directed towards administration. I was being more, with those words, I was being more aloof. Councillor Billingsley would call it fluffy. And so if we would like to see it more direct, then I welcome an amendment.
And I don't necessarily feel that it needs to be amended if there's an agreement around the table that it would include that. If there's not agreement around the table, then I would actually enter it into the records.
Councillor Billingsley?
I do now. I think it's important that words matter and clear direction. We've been told many times before that we're very vague in some of our motions and not specifically saying what we mean. And so if that's the case, that you believe strongly, Councillor Nielsen, that of what you have said, I think that it should be in writing and part of the motion.
Then, Madam Chairman, what I would do then is I would make a further amendment.
Yes, please.
I would include item number 5 on that list, and I'll need some help probably crafting it. I would say recommended actions or strategies to counter slanderous or threatening commentary against city administration, staff, and members of council.
We'll just wait a minute for that to come up. So the addition or the new amendment to the motion would read number 5, recommended actions to counter slanderous or threatening commentary against members of council and administration. I believe that staff was in there as well. Correct, Councillor Nielsen?
That is correct.
Thank you. Just wait for that correction. So I'd like it to say personally, administration, staff, and council.
Correct. I'm okay with that.
Thank you. So once we get that up, staff and council, and then remove council before administration, please. We're making our legislative services work overtime today. Oh, we made them work yesterday too, so what am I talking about? Which I thank you for. Did we capture it yet? So it should read against administration, staff, and members of council. Don't need members, you can take it out. So council. Okay, then take the members of council out. Thank you. All right, I'll read the addition once more time. Recommended actions to counter slanderous or threatening commentary against members of administration, staff, and council. So we're now going to vote on this amendment. Any further discussion? Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. Through the chair to administration. I talked earlier about the incident that happened at Manluck. Because that was actual physical as opposed to commentary or threatening, or it would be followed to the full extent of the law anyway without having this, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, that's correct. We have an internal process that we use when incidents happen, and we're following that, and there may be further recommendations coming forward to council related to this.
All right, once again, to the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All right.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
So now I would raise a question with my colleagues, so through the chair to council. Do we need to be, does number 4 refer only to administration? And I guess I would ask that of Karen, I guess.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just making you Mayor Wayne. I apologize. Thank you, Councillor Nielsen, and through the chair. I deliberately left council out of my commentary and out of my motion, not because I believe council is any less important, but because I was looking at this and trying really hard to look at this as not personal, and like I was trying to not look inward. I was trying to look at what our responsibility was as an employer. So again, as a group, I would welcome that amendment. But that is the reason I did not do it. I did not want this to look like because yes, my intent was to look after our employee and ways that she may also look after her employees. Thank you.
And so if I would like to make an amendment to number 4, and I would simply like to add and city staff. And I think what that does is that ensures the administration knows they have support to act on the direction of council in support of her staff as well.
We'll just wait for a moment for that suggested amendment to come up. All right, so number 5 would now read recommended actions to counter slanderous or threatening commentary against, number 4, recommended measures to mitigate organizational and reputational risk arising from public commentary directed towards administration and city staff.
Correct.
Discussion to that amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
Aye.
Thank you. So we now have a motion on the floor. Councillor Aberley, do you want to have it read again?
I can do that if that will help with those who can't see the screen, because I did see somebody trying to go see the screen, so I would read it again so you understand, for those in the room, what we are voting on.
Thank you. When it comes up, then you may read at your pleasure. All right. Anytime you're ready, Councillor Haberle.
Is that,
Can
for
you
those
see
who are
that?
sitting there still okay? I will speak very slowly, not,
Is there a way it can be put up on this screen so anybody that wants to
it's
see?
there, but it's just so
No,
far
on
away.
this one here.
Oh,
Did you want to pop over here, ma'am, and sit in front of the screen? You're quite welcome to. Can you see this one? Okay.
so,
Okay.
so I move that council directs administration to bring back options for independent, third-party professional advice respecting, 1, governance best practices and role clarity between council and the city manager, 2, public communication protocols and reputation risk management, 3, employer obligations related to workplace safety, including psychological safety, 4, recommended measures to mitigate organizational and reputational risk arising from public commentary directed toward administration and city staff, and 5, recommended actions to counter slanderous or threatening commentary against members of administration, staff, and council. And this will include estimates for costing and timelines and be brought back to the March 10, 2026 council meeting.
Any further discussion on this motion? As I see none, I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. As that finishes the business of this meeting, I now adjourn this meeting at 12. Oh, yes, sir. No, we do not have open mic today, sir. I'm sorry.